Howdy folks, Riflechair here. Welcome to another episode of Mail Call. I think this is Mail Call number 5. Might be number 4. But Mail Calls where I use this opportunity to answer some of your questions on the various forums for the videos that I put out there. As I said previously, it's not great. It takes too much time for me to actually sit there and type out all these answers, so I just make a video and I answer them. So this is that. Let's get started. How are you guys doing? Hope you're all doing great in this post-election liberal government situation we find ourselves in. So here's a comment with regards to the Lee Enfield rifle, still the best bolt-action battle rifle ever conceived. By the way, I made that video in April 10th, 2012. That's pretty old. And you know what? I would probably do that video differently today if I were to do it. I have to tell you though, is that the sound on that video really sucks. Like I didn't have, I've got a microphone system that I use now, and you know, the camera I was using back then really sucked, and it wasn't in stereo. And anyway, the audio in those older videos is not good. But you know, at the time, pretty much everybody's videos sucked. 7 years ago. So here's a video. Sorry, a comment on that video by Edmund Charles. I think Mr. Charles has commented on my videos before. Always very well spoken. Always makes a good point. The infamous Ian Hogg, this is what Edmund is saying. The infamous Ian Hogg, late of Her Majesty's Royal Artillery Corps and British Army, once coined the notion that firearms development has largely lagged in one of the most important aspects, regardless of antiquity or modernity. I can't talk today. How modern the rifle is or how old the rifle is. Over the preceding 100 years, that is in the insufficiency of dramatic revolutionary target identification and acquisition solutions afforded onto the shooter. Okay, I think I know what he's saying. Yes, optics have now finally come into primary use amongst the majority of infantry combatants. Still, the issue of advanced target acquisition and fire delivery beyond normal human optic capabilities has remained wanting. This is difficult to read. I think I know what he's saying. The ability to arch small arms fires with modern electro-optical technologies sermons a challenge to the small arms development community, yet it's successfully implemented will allow the infantry soldier and marine to deliver indirect fires in proportion to the ballistic capabilities of thermal arms firearm cartridges. I got a weird feeling that guy's using a Google translator. That's what I think. Anyhow, so he's saying that rifles like the Lee Enfield are, you know, obviously historical arms. They're outdated. They're obsolete. And that, you know, modern rifles aren't. And so he's probably right. However, I do think that there is you referred to using magnified optical sights. I do think that there is a dependency on those sights, and in certain situations, having open sights is preferable, even to a combat sight, like whether it's a red dot or just open sights or a nice peep sight, battle sight. You know, whether you're working in low light conditions or just at exceedingly close ranges, is that an optical sight may not necessarily be an advantage, but could also be a disadvantage if you don't have a good field of view of your immediate surroundings. Yeah. I don't know why I'm laughing. Here's one from, where am I? Right. Where's comments? Sorry, I'm working with the new YouTube Studio. It's a beta thing, and I'm not really grooving on the on how it's set up. Okay, here's one on why a lot of factory 8x57 ammunition sucks video. And he says, primers are not a great way to judge pressure. Some cups are softer than others. Plunger and extractor marks are better. Also, a chronograph helps dramatically. Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. There's I have some of these Chinese primers. Where are they? These Dominion primers here. Like, they look very Canadian, maple leafy, and you know, there's a little IVI thing on there. Dominion primers, large rifle, but they're Chinese, even though they got maple leaves all over it. Those are China. Those are from China, and they are very, very soft primers. And if you were to just look at it, I mean, if you're running like a normal pressure and that using those primers like a 30-06, you know, bumping it up to around 2,750 feet per second, 180 grain, you know, pill, you know, so that's kind of where the threshold starts of pressure is. If you were to run something like that with one of those primers, it would definitely be flat, probably also cratered around the firing pin strike. I normally use Winchester large rifle primers. I was running CCI, and what was the other one? Something too. It's basically it's a hard military primer. I think Federal Champion is what I was using for that because I wanted a harder primer, especially for if you're running them in semi-automatic rifles with a floating pin, firing pin, right? I don't like using soft primers. I like using hard primers in those situations. So where I can, I will prefer to use a hard primer. Although Winchester large rifle aren't specifically hard, I think they're harder. But so far as looking for pressure signs, you always got to have your micrometer, you know, measuring right around where the head case is. You know, looking for expansion there, because if you're getting expansion there, it means it's probably a pretty hot round. But also, you know, definitely if you see a divot where the extractor is, that's a definite sign of pressure. That's a very, very good one. However, you may not necessarily, if you're reloading brass, be looking at that divot may have occurred during a previous firing. So unless you know it's new brass, that may not be a reliable way of gauging that. So I mean, I like to use flattened primers or cratered primers where the firing pin strike is as my primary indicator of pressure, because for me that's the lowest common denominator. Is that I don't like popping primers, and so I will avoid shooting any ammunition that has those pressure characteristics on the primer. That was probably too long a response, but I haven't read any of these comments. Actually, you guys, I've been on a little bit of a sabbatical from YouTube lately, so I haven't really been on top of a bunch of your comments here, and I haven't really been responding to it. Mostly, you know, election-related stuff, but also different projects running around the house. We're putting siding on the house right now, although I've hired a team to do that. I'm not doing it myself. I have other chores that I've been working on. I've actually been off work for about a week now, so trying to catch up on things I want to get done before winter hits, if you know what I mean. Okay, so here's a comment about Enfield hunting rifles and Campro bullets. Comment from the white boy with weird. Anyway, his comment is, I'm a purist when it comes to military surplus rifles. They have sights adjustable from 200, maybe 100 to 2,000 meters. Why scope it? It's history, and it ruins the value of the gun. So this firearm that I'm running in this video is a beautifully sporterized 1942, I think it is, BSA SMLE #1 Mark III Star Lee Enfield rifle, and it was a professional job. It wasn't just some guy with a hack in the stock. It's like a custom-made stock for this rifle. It's beautiful, and it shoots great too. I'm getting a dry voice here, so I'm on a holiday. Cheers, folks. Okay, so I'm a purist. I would never sporterize a surplus rifle. I have in the past, and you know, I think it's just part of growing up. Like I'm continually reloading for these different surplus rifles. You know, I've got a large. You know, I reload because ammunition is exceedingly expensive, and in order for me to just kind of stay on top of the game, I have to hand load for these obscure old cartridges that you can no longer acquire, really. So, but I would never sporterize a surplus rifle. No, not today. They're timepieces, like you say. So don't think that I'm out there sporterizing rifles, because I'm not. More comments here on smoothing a M48 Yugoslavian Mauser. And the comment is from Joe. Not being a true Mauser enthusiast such as yourself, I saved this just for bolt takedown. I embarrassed myself with the 1936 small ring Mauser, a small bore Mauser. He probably means the small ring Mauser. Never again, thank you, sir. So yeah, I tore down a bolt in that video. I never really thought of using it as an instructional video, but if that worked out that way, then awesome. Great. All right. You know, this is one other thing. One of the other reasons why I haven't been making too many videos lately, guys, and I'm sorry for that, is that got a little bit of a problem going on with my back, and I got some pinched nerves or something. So, you know, the nerves going into my right arm. You know, I got pins and needles in my fingers right now, and there's arthritis involved. You know, getting old. In fact, I did actually go to the range today, and I shot this rifle right here, the ZKK 600. This one here is manufactured in 1966. And I love this rifle. Now you'll notice that the sights on here, I've got this little pop-up right here. See that? It's a little divot right there. So I've decided that just for fun this year, I'm just going to run this rifle open sights. And I did some zeroing verification today, and using the rear sight at 25 meters, I'm printing about 4 inches low, and that's no damn good. I mean, I always run a 200 meter zero in all my scopes and all of my open sights. It's a 200 meter zero for everything. I'm running 180 grain bullets in this rifle. It's in 30-06, and I'm getting some pretty decent groups out of it, just with open sights. Because of my shoulder today, it's quite sore, so the recoil is a little bit difficult to take. So there's a target at 100 meters. Sorry, it's a pretty busy target, but there's a strike there and a strike there. Point of aim was at 100 meters, was a 6 o'clock position, and those are the two hits right there, one there and one there. Okay, that's not it. That's just a paint got scratched there for some reason. But so two hits, one there, one there. So that's about, you know, 2.5 inch, just 2 rounds. Wanted to make sure it was good for a 200 meter zero. And this is using the pop-up rear sight. So I gotta raise it every single time I engage a target, because I can't use this sight. It's just too low. And it's not adjustable for elevation, so strange. And maybe I need a shorter front blade. But so I'm using the rear peep sight, and I'm printing exactly where I need to print at 200. I just shot one round at 200 meters, and that's where it landed right there. Right there. It's not perfect, but 200 meters with open sights, and that's shooting in the prone unsupported position as well. There's another chap that was at the range, and he's shooting a 1903 Springfield. You know, it's one of those old Parker Hill conversions in 30-06. And so, you're looking at me lying on the ground, wondering what the hell I'm doing. I shot the Jungle Carbine out there today too, and got it zeroed. Didn't do too bad. Shooting about 4-inch clusters now at 100 meters, and that was a 5-round cluster. Not bad, not bad. I did actually have to put some shim material in that rifle. Where is it? Just had it here. There it is. So this here is Cork. It's gasket material. It's about 1.5, maybe not quite 2 millimeters thick, and it's great shim material for rifles. I was doing a little bit of an experiment today with the Jungle Carbine because I wasn't happy with the wood to metal fit, and so what I've done, because I do not want to permanently sporterize or modify these rifles, is that I've got some gasket material right under the receiver here to lift it, and I had to cut a little bit further back because I had it further forward. The further back you cut it, the lower in the action the receiver sits. So it was high enough where I had lost my 2-stage trigger. So I basically had to remove half of the amount of the gasket material I put under the receiver just to test. It's not glued in. I just want to see what's going on here. And I actually put a little tiny piece of gasket underneath the barrel at this point here to act as a front block. What I'm trying to do is reestablish kind of the V of the bedding system for the Lee Enfield rifle, but in a Jungle Carbine. So I don't have any material, gasket material here under the Knox form, because I'm making good contact there without it, and I am gasket here and gasket here, and I'm shooting 4-inch groups now, prone unsupported at 100 meters, and I have to admit I was flinching with those shots, so I know it's going to be shooting better. The reason why I'm flinching is because of this nerve issue I've got on my shoulder, radiating pain down into my right arm, and having pins and needles in your hand all the time sucks. I'm gonna fix that. You know, no matter whatever it is I need to do, I'm gonna fix that because it sucks. Alrighty then. Okay, yeah. So there's a comment here on my the wall tent video I did way back then. So it was actually October 2017 when I made that video. There was a huge rain event going on. I mean, there were roads blowing out all over the place. It was a week of solid downpour. I'm talking like cats and dogs. There was one night that was specifically bad, and I actually had to get out of the tent about 3 times in my underwear, go out in the pouring rain, and bail out the boat because we're about a 20-kilometer run from where the truck was, and it was boat access only. And if we sunk that boat, we'd be in trouble. So I got up 3 times, and I bailed that sucker out. It was filling right up. That's a lot of water. Your gas tanks floating around in the back of the boat. That's no good. I mean, if you're going to sink that motor, ooh, man, we would have been in real trouble. So, anyway, we're in that wall tent while this downpour was happening, and it was buckets of water hitting that tent non-stop for days on end. And there was a little bit of water that came in, but we had that wood stove just going. We had all of our gear in there drying out. Everybody's soaking wet all the time because we're hunting, and this is a bad situation. Plus, we had trees coming down all around us because it's mountain pine beetle. It's all dead on the stump, and between all this water super saturating the ground, and then the winds that come up, and then they just push over this, fall over. We were safe in a little spruce patch, but that pine, outside of the spruce patch was scary. That was a lot of rain. Anyway, that was a 14 by 16 tent, and in the video said it was like a 21-foot tent. It's not. It's a 14 by 16, by the way. Still have that tent, and it's great. Although that was the last time I've used it. One comment here on the Tikka T3 light, but 300 Winchester short mags, pros and cons. And Margaret says, I can't hear you. Again, I had a shitty audio system at the time. I apologize for that. One here for searching for consistency, the good hunting rifle. Thanks for posting. I had the exact same rifle from 1974. This is the ZKK 600 video for that rifle I just showed you. I had the same rifle from 1974. Great accuracy, built solid. Don't see many around Canada, but very well known in other areas of the world. It's very true. In fact, I've one of my subscribers, I think is from Pakistan. I think it's Pakistan, and he's got, I think it's a ZKK 601 and 375 H&H mag. Now, he must use it for hunting, but it's obviously been carried a lot. I mean, all of the finish is worn off. He's not running a scope either. I think he's one of my Twitter followers. But you can tell it's been held right there. I mean, this beautiful logo you see right here. I can't get it near close enough to the camera. It's totally, you know, it's all the finish has been worn off. The floor plate in this area, there's no finish left on it. It's like a daily carrier. So, I mean, you know, 375 H&H. That's probably a ZKK 602. Is that right? 601 or a 602? Probably a 602. Anyway, I love those rifles. I'll never sell that one. It's very interesting. They actually have a two-piece trigger system, very similar to a number 4 Mark I Lee Enfield, where half the trigger is actually attached to the trigger guard. Okay, this is a double set trigger. I think it's the first iteration of the double set trigger they came out with these rifles. I don't think the ZG57 had that, but it may have. Anyhow, there's no ammunition in the rifle, but you can set the trigger like that, and then it's a hair trigger. Just touch it. But you know, I find the trigger is good enough without needing to use the set. In fact, I'm not a real fan of set triggers. Like these double set triggers, like you see. Sorry guys, I've actually been cleaning rifles. So I just got back from the range. Okay, there's no ammunition in the rifle. So that's a set trigger right there. But you got to reach so far forward to touch that thing, and then it goes off. And you have to set the trigger. You can't just shoot the rifle without setting the trigger. Right? You have to set it. I don't like that. That just took me an extra second to fire that round. Maybe a split second, but this is one more thing I have to think about. I don't like double set triggers. And that one is not set too light. Again, I think if a trigger is too light, so many of these double set triggers are too light. I mean, they got to have some, you know, at least a 2-pound trigger. You know what I mean? Just for safety. Excuse me. So a bunch of you have commented. Here's one. Is that I was really disgusted with YouTube because of their the bots and the artificial intelligence and the censoring and the demonetization. I just didn't feel like I was getting my videos were going anywhere on YouTube. I felt like nobody was watching them, and so I felt like that's it. I'm pulling out of YouTube, and that's that. And I went to Vimeo and I went to Patreon. Even though, you know, I actually have to pay in the neighborhood for around $100 a year to Vimeo to use their services. You know, just to upload my videos. I still didn't charge anybody on Patreon to see them. They're all free. They're all free. There's some different videos up there than what you get here on YouTube. But I was just so sick and tired of the bullshit. Okay, from YouTube censorship, and having no, you know, even if I believe a video totally conforms to their guidelines, they they just seem to, there's no recourse. There's no, you don't have any rights. So I don't like that. Anyway, the reason why I came back to YouTube, everybody, is because I actually missed the dialogue between you and me. I mean, reading your comments. I get a lot out of those comments. I get a lot out of the exchange, right? Learning from you guys learning from me, going back and forth, unpacking, musketry situations or technologies, concepts, the political landscape, how society is changing. Very, very dynamic, interesting conversations. And a lot of that happens here on YouTube. So I'm back for my own selfish reasons. Because I miss you guys. Here's one. Okay, so this is the best number 4 Lee Enfield. I've actually got a bit of heck for this video. Because, people disagree, and that's fine. This is Arnhem Knight 88. Well, it's fair to say that Lee Enfields weren't exactly the focus of rifle production for America during World War II. So I would imagine the quality would be more lax for rifles that American soldiers wouldn't be using. That's a very interesting way of looking at it. And there's probably a lot of validity to that as well. These were Lend-Lease rifles manufactured at the Savage plant for use in Britain. Pretty much all of the Commonwealth soldiers, to one point or extent, can be found or seen shooting a Savage U.S.-made Lee Enfield, number 4 Mark 1. Number 4 Mark 1 stars. Because they made both. The first year, I think they were all number 4 Mark 1s, and then they converted to the 1 star. So you do see them. Very interesting rifles. I mean, I have to admit is that I think that the Savage rifles were one of the most beautiful, probably second to Long Branch, because of that beautiful red birch stock and the incredible, actual parkerizing of the barreled receivers. Same formulation that they use on the 1911A1 pistols. Same basic phosphate finish, actual parkerizing. And when you have one that's in nice shape, they're just beautiful. Now, what I will say is that phosphate finish has a tendency to wear quick in comparison to the bluing, or even Long Branch actually phosphated a bunch of their rifles, but it's a different formulation. It's a darker phosphate finish that the Long Branch factory used. And of course, the Brits, they eventually went to a baked-on enamel paint called Suncorite to finish their rifles, which is less appealing in my opinion. All of the number 4 Mark II rifles have it, and I although it's probably more durable for inclement weather, it's just less attractive. But anyway, so far as the quality of the American rifles were concerned, it is possible that you're right, that because they weren't going to be used by American soldiers, that there was less quality control. However, I mean, ultimately it comes down to who's acquiring the rifles, is whether they have specific quality control concerns. They may require certain rebuilds or whatnot. I know it would say that at that point in time, the Commonwealth was not really in a position to make too many demands on the United States. If you know what I mean. They just needed those rifles so badly. Thank God the United States eventually entered into the war, because that was a hell of a load to carry. Very interesting. Anyway, I love Savage rifles, don't get me wrong. I've owned many of them, and I will own them again. Although I have to admit, I want to acquire a Pakistan Ordnance Factory number 4 Mark II. I miss having the one that I had before. So the number 4 Mark II Pakistani rifles, they acquired the tooling from Fazirkali, brought that tooling over to Pakistan, and started manufacturing their own Lee Enfield rifles. And lots of those rifles were used in the war over Kashmir with India. In fact, many of them were captured by the Indians and ISA stamped and then reissued to their own troops. So manufactured in Pakistan, captured in the wars over Kashmir, and then used by the Indians. So So look at the stamps and look at on the markings on those Pakistani number 4 Mark IIs. You might find that one of them was actually captured by the Indians. However, the reason why I want to acquire another one is because the one that I had an exceptionally tight bore. It had a .3105 inch groove diameter on that rifle. And it's very interesting that when you slug the barrels, make sure you slug them on a Pakistan Lee Enfield, because if you're running 312 diameter bullets in that rifle, you may have a serious load or a serious chamber pressure issue. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, I'm not saying that it's consistently going to be like that, but we were just talking about manufacturing tolerances, and so this is what reminded me of this, was that if there's a quality control issue with, I'm not saying the metallurgy or anything like that is going to have any problems. The heat treating and all that different stuff seems to be fine on these rifles. They run perfectly. The parts are all interchangeable. They're a spec rifle, but my observation is that the bores on the Pakistani rifles are a little bit on the tight side. Now, if you add years and years and years of copper fouling on top of that, you could have an unsafe situation if you're running large diameter bullets in that rifle. Make sure you totally decopper those rifles if you're going to run them, and don't run anything more than 311 diameter bullets. So, again, trying to get back to the point, is that my intention is to shoot 123 grain SKS bullets, or 7.62 by 39 bullets. Out of that rifle, I want to develop a load. I'll bet you it shoots them brilliantly, because a lot of those projectiles are 310 diameter or 3.105 inch diameter bullets, and that's cheap shooting, and those projectiles will actually shoot fairly accurately if you got a tight bore. Okay. A lot of these comments I'm not going to read, because they're just silly. Okay, zeroing the number 5 Mark I Jungle Carbine video. This is from Sean Wan. A year ago, I took a friend shooting, and we took a 1944 number 5 physically, among others. Anyway, we shot this over a rock on our knee. He was a bit disturbed over the recoil and not sure if he likes Enfields. I told him he needs to make friends with the recoil to shoot it well. I'll let him shoot a 1916 Lithgow with a heavy barrel installed. Oh, he got an HV Mark I. With a heavy barrel installed in 1945. Next time, and he'll fall in love with Enfields, I'm sure. Yeah, the Jungle Carbines, they do kick. I mean, they're essentially about a 2 or 2.5 pound lighter. They got a 16-inch barrel or so, 16.5 or something to that effect. And there's a lot of metal taken off of it. The stocks are shorter. And if you're not an experienced shooter and that thing hits you, it's not a good rifle to start somebody off. You're right. Start them with a heavier caliber. And this is what I recommend you consider doing. And this is what I've done, and it's worked brilliantly. Is I'll start people off running a 22, then we'll move into maybe a pistol caliber rifle, and then we'll move to maybe something like the SKS, back when I had one, up to maybe a 30-30 lever rifle. Then we'll move to a 308, maybe a 303 British. And what I'm talking about, like, just gradually increasing the power of the cartridge. I mean, you're bringing somebody in slowly. You don't just give them a 300 Winchester Magnum and expect them to, like, wow, this is fun. No, it's not. You just hurt them. You know what I mean? You're trying to slowly build up their proficiencies, their confidence, their technique, coach them, groom them, build them up, to the point where they will be shooting that 300 Winchester short mag, or that 300 Winchester mag, and doing it right, and not being all beat up. So starting them off with a jungle carbine, which does kick, it's just not a good idea, right? I'm not trying to make you feel bad, you know. You gotta sit there and think about it. Okay, what if it was me, right? Try to make it fun. There's a lot of people out there that have never shot firearms that are terrified of them. Okay, so they're already coming to the game with a preconceived notion as to what they're about to do. And if you whack them over the head with a 2x4, yeah, they may actually become one of the antis, or maybe one of the gun control advocates. That's not what we want. We want to make friends with people, set them up for success. Here we go. Here's a comment. Rationalist Society. This is again from the Jungle Carbine video. I have a 45 BSA number 5 with no evidence of a wandering zero. But then again, I don't try to shoot groups. Old rifles are the best. I don't try to shoot groups. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what he means. So, yeah. I'm not convinced that there is a wandering zero problem with the jungle carbine. However, here's the thing: is I've probably studied or torn apart and looked at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think probably 6 jungle carbines, and they weren't all made equally. Some of them have been very badly abused. You have to remember that these rifles had to operate in areas that were exceedingly difficult on guns, like the environmentals. Humid, constant, wet, warm environmentals. Okay, or these stocks are being exposed to humidity at a level that they're just it's difficult for them to not shift and move and swell and be saturated with water, and then your metal components are rusting and you're trying to stay on top of it, doing the best that you can. So if you have a wandering zero in a rifle that is like that, and the in the bedding or the fitting of the stocks, which was kind of an unconventional system for the time, this should be no surprise to anyone that your zero may have changed or switched depending on when the last time you shot it. So, but if you keep them in a relatively dry climate, you maintain them, I don't think you're going to have a wandering zero problem. Plus, with the inception of the FN FAL, of course, that's a much newer technology for the infanteer, and of course they're probably going to want to prefer that. And even if it means lying a little bit, hey, we've got this wandering zero problem, give us the FN and get rid of this carbine. You got to do what you got to do. There's a comment on the Colt AR-15A4 video from Stephen. Oh, come on. No one invented a shooting position. For every one ding-dong that claims he originated a particular shooting position, there's 101 before that person that used the same position out of simple ergonomics. It felt comfortable. P.S. Holding the handguard with arm completely extended in the C-clamp grip is actually new, at least compared to other more common shooting positions and grips. I notice it's even seen and more as 3-gun matches increase in popularity, or could be coincidence. Meantime, you can find magwell grip covers all over the place. Why? Because it's ergonomically more comfortable to hold it that way, especially after long periods of time. Yeah, so I've seen lots of American soldiers shooting, specifically, I should say Marine Corps. I shouldn't say that. That's been specifically, I've seen mostly Marine Corps shooting the AR-16A4s and the M4s, and most of them seem to hold the rifle in your conventional kind of V-grip system like this, okay, with the forearm extended, not gripping the magwell like what you'll see Canadians shooting the C7 as. And I think one of the reasons for that is with the C7 or the C7A1 or the A2 is that barrel harmonics for long range shooting, holding it by the actual handguard actually disrupts your not the ergonomics of the shooting, but the jeez, I'm gonna brain fart right now. The intonation, the harmonics of the rifle, more accurate shooting, holding the rifle by the mag well than by the handguard. So that's kind of what the things that Canadian shooters have developed, and also squatting in the position with the left knee proud, and then putting the knee in between the magazine and the pistol grip, kind of resting at that location. I've only seen Canadians doing that, so I've not seen the Brits do it. I've not seen the Australians do it. I've not seen the Americans do it. I've only seen the Canadians do it. So that's why I figured, hey, we probably invented that shooting position along the way somewhere. And you're probably right. Maybe somebody else has actually done that before, but I've only seen Canadians do it. Maybe that's by osmosis. That shooting cell is spread out. So far as the technology of like the Magpul stocks and all that different stuff, that forward C grip. What's his name? The guy that was in the Coast Guard, Adam, not Corolla. What's it? Costa. It's Costa that he's the first guy I ever saw shoot like that. But I think he was U.S. Coast Guard. I think he invented that. He's the first guy I ever saw. So that is a new shooting position, for sure. And I'd never see anybody in the military shooting like that. I only see 3 gunners shooting like that. I'm not sure why. Obviously, not a position I think that is going to give you good results unless you maybe have a free-floated handguard at long range. But who's the other guy that shoots like that? Super fast shooter. Old guy. Anyway. He does lots of 3-gun shooting too. Anyway, so there's lots of comments, and this has been going on for 114 minutes now, so I'll cut her short there. Anyhow, it's a post-election Canada. Liberals have a minority, but between the Greens and the NDP, they essentially have a majority. And the next 4 years are going to be hell, folks. It's at one point in time you got to think about who you got to put first, and I recommend that it's you. I recommend you got to do what you do to get out of debt. The last time we had a situation like this with out of control spending, our country's deficit is, I've never seen it as high as it is now today. And it's just going to continue to go that way. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for him to spend uncontrollably, like he has in the past, having lost his majority government. But I guess we'll see. I don't think the next 4 years are going to be very good, folks. There's a chance that there may be a vote of non-confidence in the next couple of years. It could be a re-election. I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in the Conservatives. To take the fight. I don't have a lot of confidence in Andrew Scheer as a leader. I think he split his base as soon as he became the leader of the party, after essentially publicly castrating and diminishing Maxime Bernier. He split his base. He left the party, created the People's Party of Canada, and ran against Conservatives in the last election. Conceivably, Conservatives may have lost up to 6 seats because of the PPC. That's not the way I look at it. I know a lot of Conservatives out there look at PPC members as traitors, which is kind of a liberal tactic, of divisiveness. And so I kind of see the Conservative Party as basically the Liberal Party from about 20 years ago. But that's all we got. That's all we got right now. It's sad. I think it was an opportunity for Andrew Scheer to step down and let maybe a more charismatic member of Parliament to run as the new leader. I think he's failed. The first thing he did as the new leader of the Conservative Party was to split his base. The PPC was born. That happened under his leadership. And instead of integrating true conservative thinking individuals into their team, they embarrassed them nationally and cast them out. Essentially what happened back in the old days where the Reform Party split off from the Conservative Party of Canada is exactly what Andrew Scheer repeated. And it's not symbolic of good leadership. It's symbolic of bad leadership. He's not a charismatic leader. He doesn't make people stop and listen. He doesn't bring a lot of gravitas to the fight. And that's what we need in a leader. Somebody who is charismatic. But it's what we got. Cheers, folks. Hope you're all doing great.